Okay. All right. Let's start with something here. Let's go to here. Let's start looking at this. Oh, can't do that. Oh, there we go. Well, that's good. All right. So we start with divine simplicity. Um, basically, actually, it's funny you use the word predestination and free will. The question is basically like, do humans make choices? If humans make choices, does God know about it? If God knows about it, and God knows the future, how are we really making choices? Let's say you see a video of someone. So, like in the story, or you watch the video, the people in the video are making choices, but when you're watching the video, you already know the story. If you've seen the story before, and let's say Boromir is being tempted by the ring, and you're rereading Lord of the Rings, you already know what's going to happen. So what's going on? Okay, so Rambam in Mishnah Torah, let's just do some Yesodei HaTorah. He says that the nature of God is different than the nature of other things. So God recognizes his own truth. God knows the truth as it is. So God doesn't know things through dea, it's knowledge. The knowledge of God is not external from God, and it's not a separate thing from God. Our knowledge is not identical with ourselves. For example, when I don't know something, I'm still me. When I know something, I'm still me, plus I have this additional knowledge which previously existed outside of me. Shein anu vidatenu echad. Our existence, our human existence, and our human knowledge is not unified in one thing. Habore, the creator, hu vidato, v'chayav echad. Him and his knowledge and his life are all one. Mikol tzad, mikol pina, from every angle. She'ilmale hi haya chai b'chayim theodea b'dea. So if God lived through life and knew things through knowledge, and these things were somehow separate from God, hayu sham elo hot harbe, there would be a multiplicity of gods. Who v'chayav v'dato, there'd be God, and then the life of God, and the knowledge of God. If there are multiple of these things, and they're not all one, then then there's a multiplicity. Ve'en hadavar ken, but it's not true. Monotheism is the only way. Ela echad mikol tzad mikol pina v'chol derech yichud. They're all one. They're all unified. All these aspects of them. Okay. And so this principle of divine simplicity, this explains how later Rambam Hilchot Shuva, he says, go zerohad liot tzadiko rasha. If God decided you're going to be a righteous individual, God decided you're going to be a wicked individual by, let's say, divine decree. Or shum davar shemoshech et hadam beikar toldato l'derech min hadrachim. If there was some, DNA gene that made people murderous or idolatrous or super prone to sexual sin. Oh, lamada min hamadaot. Maybe there was some knowledge. Oh, ladea min hadeot. What if you're super prone to something? Oh, lamaisa min hamasim. Any action at all, any knowledge, any human personality trait. Kamosha bodim milibam hatipshim hovre shemaim. There are some stupid people who think that, from the moment you're created, God has decreed certain things about you that must be. How would it be that there are commandments? Okay, quite simply, you look in the Torah, there are commandments. You look at the prophets, there are commandments. God says, do this, don't do this. What would be the point of telling us to do things if it wasn't within our capability to do such things? If these commandments were not given to everyone. Improve what you're doing. Don't continue doing the bad things that you're doing. God seems to believe that there's the possibility of reform, of improvement. But what if you could just say, I'm bad because the divine decree is that I'm bad. God has made me with a tendency to murder, like spilling blood. That's what I'm going to keep doing. God could make you with a tendency, but it wouldn't be a tendency that you couldn't overcome. At least that's what he's saying here. What would be the point of the whole Torah? How fair would it be to punish people for breaking laws if they had no choice but to break those laws? Rambam here says that wouldn't be fair at all. Now, it is true that in the Morah, he does have a section where he says there are going to be some people for whom the divine law is not fair. This is true. It's beneficial for the majority of people, but there's some people for whom they're going to be rare, but the divine law is not going to be beneficial for them. But the nature of law is that it applies to everyone. So how could it be that I do anything what I want, and every choice that I make is mine? How is it possible to do anything without the permission of God? And if it's not God's will, if let's say I do something bad, isn't it God's will that I do something bad? Hakatuv Omar, Kol Asher Chafetz Adonai Asa, Bashamayim V'aretz. God runs the world. So if I do something, it must be that God wants me to do. Da Shakol B'Chefzo Yaseh, V'Afal Pi Shemaseinu M'surim Lanu. Everything that happens because God wills it to be. But despite that fact, we are able to make our choices. Shema Tomar, Allah Kadosh Baruch Hu Yodea Kol Ma She'iyeh Kodem She'iyeh. But if you say God knows the path, the future before it happens, he knows who's going to be righteous, he knows who's going to be wicked. Or maybe he doesn't know. So if he knows I'm going to be righteous, then how could it be that I'm not going to be righteous? But God knew the Rambam was going to exist before the Rambam existed. And then, what if he knows there's going to be tzaddik, and it's possible for you to be a rasha? Well, hare lo yada hadavar al brio. If God just knows the possibilities, that's not good enough. Dashet shivach elazo aruka me'eretz mida v'rachva mine yam. The answer to this is wider than the earth and, farther than the seas. You have to understand this is hard to understand. Okay, and so the key question that we're building up to is this hard to understand or is this impossible to understand? So we already explained in the first thing that I read to you, Shakadosh Baruch Hu eno yodea v'da dea shehi chutz b'menu kivnei adam shehen v'datam shnayim elhu yitbarach shemo v'dato echad ve'in dato shel adam yichol lahasig davar zeh al boryo